What is up, everybody? Mark on the mic, and welcome back to another fall hunt recap. And I've got a good one for you, standing across from Mr. Erik Barber, a.k.a. Slingin Rick. Now, Erik, generally, when we have you in here, I'm trying to soak up some of your archery whitetail wisdom that I can apply to hopefully bagging a big buck of my own. Not the case today.
Not the case.
We're talking Rifle Rut Elk.
Yep. Pretty epic.
Dude, I just want to. This is your first elk hunt. You burned all your points. You pushed your chips in. You went for it. You were talking about how you wanted to burn your points
for a long time.
For a long time.
Yeah.
Right. Every option under the sun. I'm getting, look at this.
Yeah.
Here they are.
There they are.
Here they are. When you brought up.
Right on cue.
Oh, my gosh, dude.
You can't fake that.
You cannot fake that. I've got chills.
Yeah.
Ryan, get a close-up of that. That's attractive. When you brought up this option, dude, I got so pumped.
Yeah.
And for good reason, because, spoiler alert, it turned out pretty darn good. Yeah. Erik, dude, give us the rundown. How did this go? How did you decide on this hunt? Who did you go with? Yeah. And then just let's go into the story.
Yeah. So, okay, this goes like, I mean, I'm gonna bring it way back.
All right,
you know,
I like that.
As I was kind of like thinking about all this stuff, like on the days leading up to the hunt, which I think our hunt dates were September 12th through the 17th ish.
Okay.
That week. But in that week leading up to it, you know, you and I talked about this. Like the best part of any hunt, I'm starting to think, is the anticipation. Like obviously the hunt itself is incredible. Like that goes without saying. On any hunt, you know, regardless of the outcome, that's always like the icing on the cake. But you know, as we talk about this stuff more, I'm starting to think it's the anticipation, that like week leading up to it, the months leading up to it, you know, all that stuff, because not very often you get to wake up and say to yourself, I have a elk tag in my pocket. You know what I mean? So like for me, this goes way back to, gosh, like the late 90s. Of like watching TNN Outdoors, watching Realtree Monster Bulls, you know, like that was my exposure to elk hunting. Growing up in Wisconsin, like it wasn't something that, you know, like my dad has never elk hunted. I didn't have family that have done it. I did have like some buddies that their dads, you know, growing up would go out west, and every now and then, you know, they'd come home with a bull, and I just thought that was like the coolest thing ever. You know, and I remember for my, like, I think it was my 11th birthday, I got a Remington 870. And when I got that gun for my birthday,
the gun to do it all.
Yeah, I literally thought that was the gun to, that with lacrosse Alpha Burley boots. The only thing you need. You need a Remington 870 with a bird barrel and an 18-inch rifled slug barrel and lacrosse Alpha Burley boots. You can hunt anything, anywhere.
Which you're not, maybe not optimal, but you're not wrong.
You can do it. I'm not going to do it, but you can do it.
Yeah.
So anyways, like I got that gun for my birthday, and I remember, I distinctly remember like laying on a pillow, like pretending the pillow was like the edge of a ridge, and then I was like shooting at an elk with that shotgun. You know, you're 11 years old, like your mind's wandering like crazy. I also remember like
you're a dreamer.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I remember sitting in my room like backed up against the wall, like pretending I was like leaned up against a big oak tree shooting a turkey, you know? So like you're 11 years old in Wisconsin back then. That was still a year before I could actually hunt. So that's all I could do, you know? So like weird segue. The reason I even bring that up is like that's how long I've been thinking about an elk hunt, you know? So I mean, I'm 34 now, and this was my first elk hunt, and it was an absolute blast. I just wish I would have done it 10, 15 years ago. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's kind of like setting the stage on, you know, like why elk hunting. I mean, I was always just like, I guess, super drawn to the fact that they bugled. I think that's like the coolest thing in the world. You know, I've spent a bunch of time. I've been on hunts where guys have had elk tags. I watched my buddy shoot a cow on a rifle big game combo hunt in Montana a couple of years ago. So I've been around elk. I've been to Estes Park a bunch, so I've seen bugling bulls, and I'm around them enough to like respect what they are and just think that they're the coolest thing out there. So anyways, that all leads up to this year. I've been applying in Wyoming, or I've been buying points in Wyoming for 7 or 8 years. I'm still not sure if I had 7 or 8 points. Couldn't tell you right off the top of my head, but I had a fair amount of points, like enough to like do some damage, So going into this year, I'm like, this is the year I'm going to burn those points. I'm going to go on an elk hunt. But like that's really the only framework I had. I obviously, you kind of teed up the archery thing. I've always bow hunted. Like I think of myself kind of as like a bow hunter first, not because I dislike gun hunting, but because there's way more opportunity with bow hunting.
Right.
You know what I mean? Longer seasons. Tags are easier to get. All the things. Like that's why I kind of lean archery first. So, when I kind of envisioned like my first elk hunt, you think about mountains, you think about, September being when they're bugling, middle of the rut.
Which generally coincides with archery
season.
Yeah.
Exactly. But so this is, kind of like the unique part about the hunt that I did. Really good friend of mine. I've known him for, since 2014, 2015. Dustin DeCrew owns Bighorn Outfitters in Wyoming. And, I've always been talking to him about like, hey, if I ever, do this elk thing, like I got to pick your brain. I got to figure out how to do this. And he's like, hey, we got a spot for you. Just let me know when. So anyways, rewind to about a year ago, maybe even longer than that. Maybe it was 2 years ago that we like finally got the year of 2025 on the books. It's like, hey, this is what we're going to do. He kind of brought to my attention like a unit that I could pull with the amount of points that I had, where you can actually hunt with a bow or a rifle in September. So I was like, super excited about that because, you don't get to do this stuff very often. And when you do, I think it's important to kind of stack the odds as much in your favor as you can. And that hunt just seemed like something that kind of checked all the boxes. So we got a date on the calendar. This was 2 years ago. Fast forward, to, I guess, May of this year when I, found out I drew the tag, and then it was real, So, like, everything kind of starts becoming real really fast. And, I'm speeding through some of this stuff, but I bought a new rifle then at that point. Bought a Tika super light and 300 Win Mag. Put our LHT on it and really wanted to, like, have a setup dedicated for this hunt, and spent a bunch of time at the range, picked Ryan's brain a ton. I mean, he took me out to, one of the local private gun clubs here, spent some time at Edge, a ton of time at Edge. I bought a 300 because I had like a surplus of 300 Win Mag ammo from our Kodiak hunt a couple years ago.
Right.
And I'm like almost through that ammo because I shot the gun so much. Again, you don't get to do this stuff all the time, so I wanted to make sure I was like going into this ready to rock. So I spent a bunch of time familiarizing myself with the gun. And then, finally the week of September 12th came, and, my plan was I was going to bow hunt for the first 2 days, and then I was going to use the rifle, at least get a feel for the area, see what things were looking like, and then use the rifle for the rest of the hunt. So, long story short, we get out there on the 12th, Friday, September 12th. I want to say that. I'm going to actually confirm that was the right date. We got out there on the 12th. And, was checking the forecast. I was like habitually checking the 10-day forecast for like as soon as those hunt dates popped into the 10-day. And it actually was looking pretty good. Like the West has been super hot this year for, most of September. But we got really lucky. The area that we were in, I think the hottest we got was like 74, which is still a little warm.
That's warm, but that is not extreme though. I mean, a lot of stuff was in the 80s.
Yeah. So, and we got it. We saw snow. We saw we saw everything, right? I mean, we had some pretty big temperature swings. not snow in our immediate like hunting area, but once we got up into, you know, right nearby, like we had that kind of weather. So ended up getting out there on the 12th. Rained like crazy that day when we got into camp. And then the next morning, Saturday the 13th, was the first hunt day.
Did that make it hard to get around with that?
It dried out enough that evening into the next day. We didn't get into any of like the super low stuff for the first morning. It eventually dried out enough that we were okay. But like you could tell that like if that would have been our plan, you know, right off the jump to like get into some of these specific areas where it was lower, it would have been for sure. Like there was, I mean, you could see these, you know, like, I mean, it's rolling prairie and like grasslands, and you could see areas where like the creek came up really high and like just laid down all the grass. So I mean, clearly that was like rushing water, you know, that was going over a road.
Oh,
and
wow.
then, you know, when we got in there on Saturday evening, that spot specifically, like the water had subsided, but you could see that it was like, it had been, you know, pretty dang wet in there. So, yeah, I mean, it didn't really hurt our mobility, but if we would have been out there as that happened, yeah, we could have got, you know, in a rough spot.
A little bit of an overnight.
Yeah. Like, talked about doing for forever, and, you know, she's been a big part of all that, so... And she has the interest in it too, so she, you know, wanted to come out with, which made things really cool. And then it was Dustin and myself. So we're covering a bunch of ground. You know, doing a lot of glassing, a little bit of like, you know, listening. You know, getting on high spots and listening. The region that we were in is like pretty dang open, super arid. You know, you can see forever. It's not your traditional like big timber elk hunt. Like it's very open country, and it's just deceiving when you look at it on a map. Like you think you should be able to see all this stuff, but there's these cuts, you know, that drop down, and I mean that cut might drop down 40, 50 feet, you know, straight vertical down into a creek bottom, and unless you're like standing there over the edge, you're not seeing what's in that creek bottom. So we were pretty mobile that first day, and then probably like mid-morning, you know, after, you know, covering a bunch of ground, not glassing anything up, not hearing a whole lot. We did see some bulls kind of off the road on our way in that we knew were kind of in this specific area, but it was super foggy that day. We couldn't really tell what they were. We didn't really have a good play at them. And, you know, we were kind of bumping into some boundaries there. So we decided not to go after those, covered all this ground, and probably about 8:30, 9 o'clock, once the winds kind of like steadied up, we made our first kind of like big go and just did some blind calling. So probably about 9 o'clock, we're sitting on this high knob, doing some cow calls. And eventually, all of a sudden, you hear a distant bull bugle back, and that was the first bugle, you know, that I'd ever heard with a bow in my hand. So at this point, I do have my bow, and I was, you know, pretty committed to using just the bow on the first day. And you know, you hear that first bugle, and like, I don't know. I mean, your mind wanders like, man, what's going to happen? Like, what is that bull? Is he going to come? Is he not going to come? You know, I'm a big turkey hunter, and I know people are going to love the turkey hunting parallels here. But, you know, for anyone that's turkey hunted, you've, you know, had a turkey gobble and never come, you know? So like in my head, that bull bugled, I'm like, oh, this is going to be kind of like that. We'll hear him, you know, doubtful that he's going to all of a sudden, because he wasn't close, you know, he was maybe, you know, 500-600 yards away. Like it sounded pretty dang faint. And again, we are in some wide open sage country. But regardless, we hear the bull bugle. You know, we move up maybe about 80, 100 yards. Dustin kind of falls back in a location that would have been advantageous for the bull to try to come get his wind, which would have put that bull in front of us. So we had just, you know, we're walking in. Chantel's behind me. She's filming, and I've got my bow kind of creeping up, cross this little wash, pop up, and there's a big sagebrush I was going to get behind or get in front of just to have a little bit of cover out in this stuff. And I'm kind of focused in on that, you know, clump of sage, and I happen to like look up, and when I looked up at the horizon, I could just see tines coming up over the hill. So I right away, like, kind of, you know, signaled, you know, everyone what was going on, just plopped down in the wide open, pulled my binos up, and here comes a super nice 5-point. Like, he was a younger bull, but he was a nice, solid, you know, 5-point. And just right away, I'm like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. Like, this is actually happening. So he's probably about 150 yards. He kind of like, periscopes over the hill. He's with a cow. And
Interesting.
the cow was actually who was like pulling him in, obviously. She was looking for, the source of that sound. She must have been lonely. She was like a lone cow with a lone bull, which, I thought was a little interesting. I feel like you're more used to seeing like bigger groups, a bunch of cows with a bull. I don't think, at least in my mind, it was kind of out of the ordinary to see just one cow with one bull.
Right.
But she popped over, and you could see the cow. Like, I've got some footage here that we can even throw up of like her looking down, checking these cuts, like looking hard to her right, looking kind of checking out what we are, but not super concerned. And then she keeps coming. And when she keeps coming, that bull continues to follow, pops down in a low spot, and I kind of get turned a little bit, and now he pops up probably about 100 yards, and I knew right away, I'm like, I'm not going to shoot this bull on day one. It literally minute one,
Yeah.
But it's still, like, you have a bow in your hand. You've waited your whole life for this. There's finally an elk coming in, and like, I don't know, just like, even though I knew I wasn't going to shoot him, I still was just like coming unglued.
Well, and then you're having this incredible experience. The reason why you're there is happening. And like you said, you're not going to shoot that bull, but then to me, your confidence goes, you're like, this can happen.
Totally. And then your mind your mind also wanders. It's like, okay, well, is that a satellite bull that's coming in quiet? Is there another bull behind? Is that actually the bull that bugled? Like, just all these questions are just like firing through my head like crazy, And actually, this worked out pretty dang good. The cow eventually got a little bit spooky, and she just turned and took him with. And I like, you might hear that like, oh, that sucks. But like, I honestly was a little bit glad that happened, that like we had an encounter, kind of like, ripped off the Band-Aid and kind of got into the mix right away. And to your point, like, then you've got that confidence of like, okay, this is what I can get away with from like a hide standpoint, because that is something that is pretty dang new to me. I've spent a fair amount of time bow hunting whitetails out west, in terrain somewhat similar to this and chasing mule deer, but I don't know, it is different when you're calling something to you versus like spotting something, hopefully putting it to bed, and then making a move in on it. This is totally different, where you're in this like wide open sage country. Now you're trying to pull something to you. It's like, what's your hide? You're looking at sage that's maybe hip high, but I was really surprised with what we were able to get away with. So that was kind of a cool confidence boost. And then, so we were all pretty pumped, like it was cool that we had that encounter. From there, we, just kept covering ground. We pushed in maybe another 500 yards, did another calling sequence. Chantel and I were up on one side of the ridge. Dustin was kind of back on the opposite side, and he called in a spike. We never saw it, but came right into him. So, that was another encounter. Right after that, we hit another spot. This is probably more middle of the day now, like noon, 1 o'clock. We had went again, similar scenario, like big wash, big creek, it kind of drops down, and we were up in this like sage prairie, and as we're walking in, we could hear cows, mewing down in that creek. So we just kind of got as close as we could without like, the wind swirling in there. Dustin starts hitting the cow call a little bit, and all of a sudden up pops a calf. And she's far. She's probably 300 yards, but you could hear, a bunch of elk down there. We never heard a bull. That calf, though, she popped up, and you could see her like looking back down into the creek. So like you knew there were more elk there. You're hearing them. The way the calf is reacting, like it's pretty apparent that there's more going on than just a lone calf. So once she kind of like went back down into this creek, I ran up maybe another 80, 100 yards, got set up. And we continued that calling sequence for probably about like 45 minutes, just, hitting a cow call every now and then, and never,
Did you ever peek over?
We never
in there?
did.
You never did. Okay.
And that is the hard part. Like, when you see this stuff, when you look at it on the map and when you're there in person, you think you should be able to just like get in there and be able to like, almost like creep up and periscope down into it. But the way the terrain rolls so much, like you would almost have to get darn near like in the cut to actually like see to your left and right and actually see it. Because I mean, picture a hill that kind of drops off. Maybe it declines a little bit, and then it declines some more, and then it literally goes straight. You know,
Gotcha.
so I mean, it's pretty. You know, I'll show you some videos of what it looked like, but it's like pretty choppy. You know, nothing is gradual. Nothing is you know, like a perfect little like hidey hole. Like it's pretty chopped up, which makes it tough to kind of like creep into all these angles. I mean, when you sit on a high spot and look out into this stuff, you know, it is like there are a million places for those elk to be. You know, and you're looking for something that's like the size of a horse. Like you think you should be able to,
right?
And they make noise. You know, like you think you should be able to find these things. But, you know, day one kind of came and went. Well, and I'll get into an encounter at the end of the day on day one. But, like, you think you should be able to, like, see these things, you know. But it's, I mean, it was a lot more optics intensive and glassing intensive than I guess I ever expected. And I think that is pretty specific to the unit that we were in, you know. So yeah, that was, I guess, the first morning. And then that afternoon, we hiked into a different area where these bulls had been kind of crossing this river, coming up off these river bluffs, you know, crossing this river. I think what they were actually doing is they were getting to some like nearby food, you know, that was kind of over on some private, and the river was a unit boundary. We could not hunt the opposite side of the river that we were on. And we also figured though that that's where the elk were bedding, you know. So I mean, it was tough. Like you're going in there to hunt the spot where the elk actually aren't where you have, you know, where your tag is invalid for. You're trying to pull them onto you. You know, at least we had a good idea that's where they wanted to be. So we kind of went in there with high hopes that we would get into a situation like that. So we're walking in. We did end up actually bumping two small like raghorns that were literally hanging out in the river. You know, so we come up and I mean, they're literally coming right to the river. We kind of like ran into each other. I still don't know that if they spooked at us or if they spooked at a coyote, because there was this coyote literally, I mean, he was maybe 10 yards from the bulls. And, you know, they're coming towards us, coming to the river. Coyote is in the river, right on the bank, and they got up to the bank right as that coyote, like they just kind of ran into each other.
And were they coming from the
other side? They
were
coming
side?
From the other unit into us.
Okay, gotcha.
And, but again, we were kind of caught with our pants down there. Like we were on our way in, didn't expect to like bump into that scenario.
Because what time of day was that?
This is like 4 o'clock, and it's getting dark at like 7:30-ish, you know? So, I mean, it was still fairly early.
Like, yeah, kind of evening, but definitely early, you know? Maybe about the time you think something could happen.
Right,
but
exactly. So, you know, they kind of went back into the cover. We continued on down the river where we figured, you know, these bulls were kind of hanging out. Basically, there's a big oxbow, and then, you know, it was almost a little bit like bow hunting whitetails, you know, a little bit where, like, we figured the elk would kind of be coming off these breaks, coming down, crossing this river in a low spot, and there was a wallow in there. Like, I mean, it was tailor-made. So, like, it had all the signs of, like, this is where they want to be. So we just kind of sat there for a little bit. And by a little bit, I mean all evening.
Okay.
So, and it was pretty slow. Like we didn't see anything, you know, weren't hearing much. You know, but Dustin kind of had confidence that they were at least nearby. And maybe at sunset-ish, probably shortly after sunset, Dustin hit a bugle. And when he bugled, you heard a distant bugle up and over the bluff on the opposite side of the river. So again, in that other unit, heard one distant bugle kind of respond to him. So, you know, and again, in my head, I figured that was probably going to be all the action that we got into that night. And then at last light, I mean, I'm talking like last light, with like probably 10 minutes of legal shooting light left, kind of look up and, you know, across the river, you can see up on these bluffs are skylined. I mean, it's classic Western river bottom stuff. You know, you can picture like cottonwoods in the river. You look up and there's just this big expanse of like river bluffs that line, the boundaries of the water, right? And you look up, and all of a sudden, here come over the skyline a group of like 9 cows and calves, and right after those cows popped over, hear bugle.
One just ran.
So that bull's right with them. It was much closer. Cows start kind of running down the bluff, coming our way, and then this big dark, body pops out on the skyline and just rips a bugle, and it was a real big bull. I mean, he was a big 6. I'd say, like, 310 inch 6-point, like,
Okay.
good bull. Like, I'm shooting that thing all day. He's 674 yards away at this point, and I have a bow, so not much I can do. But and he's also in the other unit. But he pushes those cows down that bluff, and he literally, I mean, they covered that distance in like 30 seconds. Pushed the cows across the river. Once they hit the river, you could tell they were kind of hanging out there for a little bit. Because at the rate that they came off that bluff, if they would have continued at that, they probably would have came by in legal shooting light. But they must have came down, hit that water, and were probably drinking. Because you could actually hear like rocks kind of moving around down there. So I'm sure, and they hung out there for a little bit. So by the time that all of a sudden the cows came walking through, we heard another bugle. It was him bugling down in the water. And, now it's too dark to shoot. But those cows came by at 80 yards, and which is like right on the fringe of like what I'd be comfortable with my bow.
Right.
And, had it been 10 minutes earlier, I would have for sure been able to sneak up this fence line that we were kind of like tucked into, cut that distance easily in half.
Right.
And, the bull bugles again. He's closer, bugles and chuckles at the end of this one, and he comes by, hits that same spot, gets behind us, and, kind of continued to work on off. But that way, like that, the intensity that he was bugling at, the intensity that he came marching through that river bottom, like, he had this like aggressive posture to him. Like he was doing all the things that you would expect a bull to be doing in September. And I was super fired up. It was cool. As we were trying to get out, he's between us and where we need to get to. So we're trying to like work around him. And at one point he bugled probably like 200 yards away. And then, he must have heard us working our way through the sage and must have thought we were elk. Because then all of a sudden he bugled again at probably 40 yards.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's pitch black, but if you pull your binos up, you can see shapes, and you could see him right there,
It's just so crazy that, like you said, essentially a matter of 10 minutes and you're likely within 40 yards of a big bull.
Yep.
And then you're like, okay, now all day you're doing everything you can to get close to these things. Yep. And now you're like, yo, I'm trying to stay away from you
100%, 100%. Yeah. And he just, we got back super late that night. I think we got back around like midnight, 1 a.m. Cause we had to like wait for that bull to kind of work off, Once he finally did, we made our way back, and, that was the end of day 1. But it was awesome, like loaded with encounters, and that encounter at the end of the day was really cool. It was a bull that I know I would shoot. And we didn't think we bumped him. So the next morning in talking with Dustin, he's seen bulls in area A, and then the next morning in area B, 10 miles away, 5 miles away, seen the same elk from area A. So in the back of your head, you're like, man, there's a chance that he's still in here. Like the whitetail hunter in me thinks that, okay, he's probably going to go, but that's not the way that elk are. So the next morning we get up, and get on a high spot, spent a bunch of time glassing. We were probably about 1.5 miles away from where we had that encounter the night before. And, you might think like, man, why don't you just go right in there right off the rip? And so there's again, we kind of talked about that river and that body of water, early morning, you've got thermals acting a little funky. The wind was pretty dang calm. Day winds pick up as the sun gets up a little bit. So we didn't want to just blow in there. We wanted to get up on a high spot. As cool as that would have been, because I'm sure there were, if not that group of elk, I'm sure there were more elk in that area.
Yeah, but in open country like that, I mean, I can see what you guys are doing. You can push your chips in on kind of a little micro area, or you can sit
back out, go
and
macro, and that's exactly what we did. So we got up on a high spot. On our way to that high spot, we actually glassed up a couple bulls, 2 smaller ones, maybe. I mean, there was no play on them. They were smaller bulls anyway, like smaller 5 points, 1,500 yards away, and we hiked up, got on this knob, tried to relocate those. They had then moved over another knob and got into one of those cuts, and sat there for probably about an hour, 2 hours, checked a bunch of different country, and never glassed anything up that morning. Then probably about, like, once the winds did get consistent, so it's probably about 10:30, 11 o'clock now, and it's heating up. Like, it's definitely getting warmer. This was the warmest day. It's probably a high of 74 that day. Wind was pretty consistent, so we decided to get in that river bottom and just kind of push up towards where those bulls, where we thought they were. So we're working our way up, hit a bugle, we did a cow calling sequence for maybe the first spot. Actually called in a bunch of coyotes.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, they came into like 3 yards. Like, it was kind of cool. They were clearly looking for, Dustin was doing like the whole lost calf thing. And at first I heard this like yelp, and I'm like, man, is that a like
a weird cow?
Yeah, it sounded off. And we had seen a coyote in that area that morning. And Chantel's like, I think that's a dog. And sure enough, it was couple coyotes, and I mean, they literally came in like 3 yards from me. So it was kind of a cool encounter. We pushed forward after the coyotes worked up maybe another 250 yards. And cow called again. Nothing. Then Dustin bugled, and then we heard a bugle back. So we knew that there was at least a bull in the area, but it was again on the other side of that river. So we kind of move up a little bit. Bull bugles again on his own as we're kind of moving up. So, I mean, you could tell he was...
That is always a good feeling.
Yeah. So, I mean, we went from like, at least I did, I went from like kind of cautiously optimistic to now like, this could happen. Like, if he bugled on his own, that to me always suggests that he's a little bit more primed up than just like your lackadaisical midday bugle in a bed, And he did sound a little bit closer, still in the same general area, but no, we had cut maybe another 250 yards off. So I'd say we're probably at this point 300 to 400 yards from that bull. Again, he's got to cover a lot of ground. Hit a couple cow calls. He bugles again. He's probably now another 100 yards-ish closer. So we keep moving up, and we had just gotten into this little patch of like, aspen and some, just some more like brushy cover, and we just cracked into that, and I kind of looked up. Dustin's right in front of me, and I looked up and to my right, and I'm like, oh crap, right here, and here comes this bull that's just coming right at us, and it's not the one that had been bugling. It's a smaller 5-point, younger bull, and I mean, we just froze. I knocked an arrow. We all just kind of like crouched down a little bit, and he came into like 12 yards.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I had every opportunity to shoot that thing. Like, it was so cool, like watching him look at us. Like, you could tell he was like looking down, like he's just towering over us, because my first reaction, probably the wrong one, was to like, pop down on a knee. Just because I wasn't in that like thicker cover yet, we were right on the edge of it. Had I been in that cover, I would have just got in front of a tree and just stood there, But my initial reaction was to take a knee, crouch down. He comes in, and I mean, he came into probably, I think the closest he got was like 9 yards. And eventually he wheels out of there. Like, he picked us up, he just could see us. Something didn't look right to him, and he wheeled out. And when he turned and ran out of it, I mean, it sounded like a bomb brush went off, and it was just sticks cracking. He's running. You can hear his, his feet hitting the ground. So Dustin immediately bugled to kind of like simulate like another bull running him off. Because in the back of our mind, we know what he's doing. He's going back across the river where he came from, where that other bull is. So Dustin was trying to kind of replicate like another bull had just ran him off. And Dustin chuckled at the end of his bugle, and as he's chuckling, that bull like cuts Dustin off. And he's like close at this point. He's close enough that like I was really jacked up. I'm like, we got to get up here. Like right now, like we're going to have a chance at this thing.
Oh, that is so cool. And I mean, like you think I can picture that whole scenario, and really, even though that elk spooked, really adding to
like context of the
context, and also like creating emotion, like, that bull that is obviously a little bit hot and aggressive thinks that this bull is essentially, the king over
100%.
here running this guy off. Like he needs to check this dude out even more now.
And when he bugled back at that, right after that bull bugled, that 5-point ran off, when he responded to our bugle, you could feel that intensity in that. Like you could tell, like the couple bugles that he had were very like, I don't know, almost sounded like pretty, like your classic elk bugle, like a little bit fluty, like, and I'm speculating here. I'm assuming it was the same bull from the night before, because he had kind of a distinct bugle when he would let one rip, almost like this wheeze on the front end, and then like he'd really crack it on the back, like you could just hear his diaphragm working, like when he was close like that. And again, at this point he's probably 150 yards. So you're getting those small details that you otherwise wouldn't get if he's 500 yards, a couple ridges over.
Yeah.
So Chantel and I push up. Dustin hangs back, knock an arrow, crouch down in front of this aspen, and I'm sitting there, and never got a look at him. But he bugled again. At this point, he's probably 100 yards. I mean, you can hear brush breaking. He's right there. Like he just needs to cross this river. Actually, as soon as he gets in the river, like I would have had a shot at him, But I'm sure if he would have hit that water, he was going to come right to us, We're set up kind of on this little, like, almost like an oxbow peninsula where, like, we figured he would cross. And, I mean, you can see there's elk tracks crossing there. So, I mean, we had everything in our favor. He bugled one more time. We're hearing footsteps, hearing him raking, like hearing all the things, right? And then all of a sudden I feel a little bit of gust of wind in the back of my neck. And he just went quiet. And it like, when I say he went quiet, like only 2 minutes went by of like not hearing anything, which isn't that long, but I just knew, like I just could feel it, I turned around, I glassed at Dustin, and he was kind of giving the signal, like he's kind of, doing this with like to simulate the wind swirling. We sat there another like 5 minutes, and we're like, we just got to get out of here. Like, so we back out. But that was such a cool encounter. Like it had everything that you would kind of ask for of, just like had the emotion of this bull coming in that like he's getting pissed off that we're, encroaching on his territory. Like that had everything that you would ask for without actually like getting a glimpse at that.
Well, and you had a bull in bow range that you could have shot. I mean, that's, this hunt, the context of this hunt and burning all your points changes things a little bit.
Oh, yeah. If this is a DIY hunt, I'm shooting that bull that came in 10 out of 10 times. Like, he was not a bad bull.
And it's such a big deal. Yeah. And even that was like, that's a big deal. To get within bow range. I mean, last or kind of like about the same week as you, like we were overlapping a little bit, but like I hunted all week, did not hear the bugling that you heard. Yeah. And then finally the last night I got within bow range of a 4-point. Right. And I was like honestly, it was one of those things that made my hunt just because it was kind of a grinder, right? Not a ton of action. And I was like, you know what? That's a win. I got within bow. It didn't work out, but I got within bow range of a bull elk.
100%.
So, anyway, keep going with your story. It's more interesting.
So, I mean, we were all super pumped up. Like the spirits were very high. And again, it is day 2. It's like halfway through day 2. Middle of the day, we we're like, man, we didn't expect to be gone that long, but like that encounter took longer than it. Obviously, one thing leads to another. We're like, we got to go back, grab some food, get rehydrate, all the things. We get back to the truck, start coming up with a plan for the evening, and after kind of like getting our stuff reorganized, get back out there after maybe an hour of kind of like reorganizing, eating some lunch and just getting rehydrated. So, in my head, I was still pretty sold on that very specific location. You know what I mean? Like,
you're bought in.
I'm like, this is working. I want to be right there. But
it's hard though. Like,
it is.
Shouldn't we just go back to where we're seeing all the elk and getting close to them?
Yep. So then that evening though, Dustin kind of had a different plan. He's like, we might end up right back there, but he's like, I want to go check some other stuff. So we, drive maybe about 15, 20 miles north of where we were that morning. So decent ways off, but same country, same stretch of that same like sagey prairie, breaky, like river breaks habitat. We glassed up a bedded bull that wasn't one that we wanted to like move. He was way off. Like we was forever away. Glassed him up, decided not to make a push in on him. And this is like right away that afternoon. And then, keep kind of covering country. Eventually we wind up kind of on this like high spot overlooking this stretch of river bottom. And the wrinkle in all of this is on our way in there, there were some people that were not supposed to be. They were trespassing. I was trying to say that lightly.
When you're on somebody else's property without permit, yeah.
Yep. So Dustin went and talked to these folks and said, "Hey, like it's a place that looks public. It's not public. Totally get the confusion. Blah blah blah." The encounter that we had with these people, the reason this is like noteworthy, is it kind of like it really helped us out. So Dustin didn't come across right off the rip. Like obviously you're frustrated someone's where they're not supposed to be, but you can't just go in there guns blazing on somebody.
Right.
So he, politely asked them like, hey, don't know if you have permission from someone. They're like, we don't. We thought this was public, blah, blah, blah. Tell the whole story. They were in there fishing. They then decide, obviously they're packing up and leaving. And Dustin's like, I'll show you a spot where you guys can go fish that is public. And obviously they appreciated that.
Right.
So they, kind of reciprocated. When they came up then, they're like, what are you guys hunting? We told them we were chasing elk. And they're like, well, there was a herd that was in this area, maybe a couple 100 yards to the south, whatever. They said they saw them. They saw one bull with a bunch of cows, whatever. So these guys didn't seem like elk hunters. So whether like the legitimacy of that encounter is like, some of those details are probably a little bit fuzzy, but we know that they said they saw elk. We're taking that at face value. Cool, whatever. Those guys go on their way. Because we have that intel in the back of our head, we're like, well, let's, check this out for a little bit. So we get up on this high knob and spend probably about like 45 minutes just like picking it apart. Glassing, listening, not hearing anything. But again, just like picking apart this like these timber patches that kind of like lined this, section of water. And then this, pops up. I mean, there's everything from like river breaks that jump up maybe, couple 1,000 feet. I mean, like pretty rugged, steep stuff that just tower up over this river. So you're glassing up into there, you're glassing down into the bottom, like you're picking everything apart. And after about 45 minutes, I just happened to like glass to my right, and I see a cow and a calf kind of like just quickly like jogging like up this like little like feeder creek, and they're popping in and out of the timber. Trees still have leaves, so like I'm only getting little bits and pieces of them. I just panned back the direction that they came from, and like boom, right into my field of view is this nice bull, like just pushing these cows up. And by these cows, it was just that cow and calf at that point. He bugles, like literally right as I get eyes on him, he bugles, and we keep watching him. He bugled maybe 2 or 3 times, and after that third bugle, all of a sudden you hear another bull bugle down there and another bull bugle, and like next thing you know, like there's this little mini rut fest happening down there, and I glass up a bull and I'm like, man, he doesn't seem like that big. And Dustin's like, we must be looking at different bulls because the one I'm looking at is pretty big. So, I mean, there's like multiple bulls down there, and you're hearing, this bull bugle, that bull bugle, and we're trying to get a line on their line of travel, right?
How far away are they?
They're 1,500 yards at this point.
Okay, so they're out there.
They're out there. Yeah, I mean, they're not in play. And at this point, this stuff is super open. So I have my rifle at this point. We're just we're just hanging out. Like,
excellent.
Yeah. We're just hanging out. Like, we're kind of observing like where these things are going to go. If you can picture, like, everything falls down. The river is the lowest point, but then there's these bluffs that come up on the side that we're on, and then the opposite side. Well, the elk actually were on our side. Yeah, it just kind of dishes out, but it rolls down in there real like gradually.
Okay.
There's a hump here, then it falls off. Maybe there's another hump. We're up a little bit higher, and it just kind of like slowly rolls down into the river. So what we were trying to do is we were trying to get a line. Are they going like basically straight away from us, which it kind of looked like at some points, but then it also looked like they were kind of going like further to the, like basically running the river up straight north. Okay. And the reason that's important is that would have impacted how our approach would have been. Okay. So we kind of took a while to figure out like what we wanted to do. And then, eventually we got some terrain in between us and the elk, and we had seen a bunch of cows at this point. Like, we know there's probably at least 30 cows down there.
Oh, wow.
And multiple bulls bugling. Like, it's happening. Like, it was this little, like, buzz of, like a beehive. Like someone kicked the hornet's nest, and there's just, like, this buzzing activity of bulls and cows. And, like, whenever you would see an elk, it was never standing. Like, it was just, like, everything was moving. So, like, the intensity on everything is a little bit ramped up because you're like, hey, this is really great right now, but like 30 minutes from now, those elk aren't going to be there. Like, they're probably going to be there, they're going somewhere. So we push down on this other high knob, like we like lose some elevation, pop up again, try to relocate the elk, can't, and then pop down on this, one more knob down. And at this point, I've got my backpack, rifle in one hand, and we kind of like, you're creeping up. We know at this point we're for sure going to be able to see him, because this is like our last big terrain block that separates us and the elk. So we kind of approach this like much slower. I mean, there's a chance that we pop out and they're 500 yards.
Right.
There's also a chance what happened, we pop up over, and there they are, and because they had continued moving, that direction, they're still 1,100 yards away. But immediately we glass up, the original bull that we had seen, which is a pretty good one. Younger bull, I think it was actually a 5x7. He was he had some like interesting like character. He wasn't super wide, wasn't super heavy, long tines. And I think he had like a kind of an extra on his right side. So he was cool. Like, he was a bull that, like, if he would have done it right, I would have had a really hard time not shooting that thing.
Yeah.
He was a really good bull. So we see him. He's with all these cows in the river. They're literally in the river. I mean, he's bugling like crazy. You can see he's just kind of like picking his head up and, just like almost doing that like lip curl thing, that they'll do when they're just like, when they're glunking and just like, scoping everything out. I mean, he's 1,100 yards away at this point, but still, like, we're just watching all this activity. And there's a couple other bulls there, and everyone's locked in on all those elk for a good reason. Like, that's what we're kind of like trying to figure out. So when I say that, like, by locked in, everyone's literally looking through their binoculars, like laser focused on that. At this point, I pull my binos down to kind of like get a like big picture view and like, okay, how are we going to like cut some terrain here? It's going to be tough because we are now, if we go over this knob, like, there is nothing but open air between us and these elk. Like, they're going to see us, So I just happen to pull my binos down, throw them in my bino pack, and like literally, like, I think my exact words were, holy right here. And out pops this bull at like 380 yards.
Oh my gosh.
And it immediately, I was like, that thing is way bigger than anything we've seen. Like, when I'll use whitetail hunting because that's what I can like speak to. When you see a bunch of nice bucks, you know, a bunch of does, like you kind of have this like, you know what you're seeing, right? And you can like almost at a snap glance, like, oh, that's probably a younger buck. That's a decent buck, whatever. Then all of a sudden you see something that's different, and immediately you know, like, whatever that is like different than what I've been seeing. And that's exactly what this was. I didn't count times. I just immediately see this big body and this like all these tines just kind of moving left to right. The whole herd is going right to left, 1,000 yards away up the river. For whatever reason, this guy is 380 yards from us, going the exact opposite, north to south.
I would have assumed that this crazy rut fest of activity was almost like just, you know, almost like as it's growing, you think of like, you know, like, I don't know if you've ever seen like crazy storm clouds,
yeah,
right?
100%.
And then it's just
building.
like sucking other clouds. Yeah. Like, and I would have assumed he was like going to catch up with those guys to see what's going on.
Because he would have been downwind of the whole herd. So
Right.
like that was something that I kind of, but like I'm processing all of the stuff I'm talking about now after the fact.
Because in the time, it does not matter.
It literally, all I can think about, I literally said, Ryan, you'll have to bleep this out a second time. I said, holy right here. This bull's at 380 yards. He's in range. I have my rifle. He's perfectly broadside. He is in the wide open. Like, I should be shooting right now. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I've had this happen when I was bear hunting up in Alaska 2 years ago. Coop and I encountered that bear when we should be shooting. And like when that happens to me, you know, Mark, I lose my mind.
A person can get a little flustered.
Well, there's a lot of anxiety in knowing that, like, hey, I'm seeing this thing right now, and also right now is probably the most optimal time to be pulling the trigger. Like, every second that ticks beyond right now, it is less ideal. It is further. He is moving. It like
might be out of your window,
right?
Yeah.
So, and he at 380,
maybe he just decides to cross the river and walk straight away.
Yeah.
Like,
yep, 100%. You never know. I mean, it's the middle of the rut. He could have all of a sudden caught the right wind and been boom back up in that beehive of activity. So Dustin, super calm, but I could tell in his voice that this was different. He goes, "Oh yeah, that's the bull we're looking for." You know, but just the way that he said it, like, I'm like, oh yeah, he knows it too.
Well, and that's like, you know, your yes no, like I call it the yes no switch. Like I'm going like,
and I
said,
flipped it right away.
You flipped it right away. It's not like, oh, like I can tell he's a 6. It's like, no, we're shooting this bull. We'll figure it out later. Like we're killing this bull.
I honestly, like, I'm jumping ahead. I actually had no idea how many points he had.
Right.
I literally never counted, which is bizarre. For like something that, like, again, we talked about how this is 8 years in the making. Like, wanted to make sure I did
You knew
at the moment that I saw that thing, my brain got microwaved. So now we'll get into the microwave.
Well, hold on a sec though. I want to say though, like, you know this. You're like, I don't care what you say. I know I'm shooting this bull. But then when he essentially reaffirms and validates that, to me, it's like, oh gosh, like, yeah, like, I know it's a big one, but now I really know it's a big one.
Yes, 100%. So a couple small details here. Right away, Dustin validates that bull. He's like, oh yeah, that's the one we're looking for. So I had my mystery or my Stone Glacier pack on. I quick unbuckle it, get it off. I had my puffy up in the top lid. Even though it's 74 degrees, I like to carry that thing. 1, because you never know when you're going to need a puffy. 2, I love shooting off that. I literally, shooting off that top lid with a puffy jacket in it is like, you know, it really helps, you know, steady the rifle, all that stuff, right? So I just immediately go to the backpack, totally discounting the fact that I have my shooting sticks, my bipod, on my bino harness. But because I'm trying to lay low on that backpack, I had taken my bino harness off and just set it next to me, just real quick, like hastily unbuckled it, put it down next to me. Now I'm on the pack, but I'm like not like the hill's falling off and the bull's kind of out like this. So my gun naturally wants to like point at like a 30-degree angle down when it should be almost pointed basically straight up, maybe slightly down, you know?
And you're proned out then?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've had to do that before, and it's always a little awkward because you're facing down, and then you're trying to
Angle it
contort
back
your
up.
body to get it back up. Yeah.
So Dustin goes, grab your shooting sticks. And, like, I needed that, you know, because, I mean, my brain is, I'm not thinking clearly at this moment.
Oh, yeah.
So I finally, you know, I grabbed my shooting sticks out.
And those are the Spartan Springboks, right?
Yes, and they're the longer legs, which was key here because I extended those legs up. Again, I mean, you got to think, I am on one plane of elevation. Every 6 inches in front of me, that elevation is literally going down probably a foot. You know what I mean? So I extended those legs out as long as I could, got the gun up, and immediately the gun is a lot steadier. And then I grabbed my backpack and pushed it underneath the rear of the gun, kind of as like a rear support. And once I had that, then I'm like, I mean, literally, the gun was just rock solid.
Just locked in. I will say, if you are a rifle hunter, I'm not sure there's a piece of kit you can add to your arsenal that you may not have right now. That's a bigger game changer than that particular shooting stick. Yep. You don't have to hold them. You know, they have the male female magnetic. So you don't have to monkey with holding them in place. So then, like you said, you got stabilized front. They're fast. Yep. You're in some like kind of wild terrain, right? But you're able to optimize it for your sitting height or position 100%. Or whatever the terrain is. And then boom, you bring your backpack into play. And now, like you said, you're locked in.
Yep. So I'm like, I'm on the gun now, and I'm just like, I mean, what we're talking about is literally like seconds, right? But like as it's happening, it feels like it's almost in like slow motion. You know, I'm like, okay, like the gun's feeling a lot steadier. Okay, there he is, you know. And at that point, he was behind a cottonwood, and he was just going to come out into this like wide open. And so, you know, ranged him again. He was like 410, 415-ish. He keeps going. I asked Dustin for a range, and he ranges. He's like, okay, 423. So dial up an extra. I was at 400, which for my setup is like two mils. 450 is 2.4, so I split the difference, dialed to 2.2. And then, you know, chamber around, and now I'm like just feeling pretty dang solid. And at this point, you know, I'm like basically the bull's walking at just like a very like slow, steady walk. And, you know, I'm kind of tunnel vision at this point. I'm literally just watching his front right leg. I'm like, as soon as he puts that leg forward, like that's when I'm going to like send the shot because it's going to open everything up. What Dustin is actually saying to me is, when you're ready, I'll stop him. But I'm like, okay, sounds good. But my ears aren't hearing that. So in the footage, my wife filmed all this. You can hear me say like, okay, I'm ready. And then you hear like me holding my breath and say, ready a second time. And Dustin goes to like let out a cow call to stop him. As he hits the cow call, boom, I shoot. Because I was like timing that leg and not paying attention to what he was actually doing. Ready. And hit him right behind the shoulder. Maybe the first shot was maybe a little bit back, like back of the lungs, but I mean, hammered him.
Yeah, I mean, you showed it to me, and yeah, I looked back, definitely in front of the diaphragm, back of the lungs. He didn't like it.
Yeah. So you heard the bullet hit. He immediately, like, just starts like backpedaling, like takes like one step back, raises his front right leg, comes back one more, and then he's stationary and he raises his onside front right leg, which in my head, you know, like not actually seen impact. I'm like, gosh, I hit him in the leg. I didn't know at this point where I had actually hit him. I just knew I hit him. So I get steady, send another shot, and hindsight, this second shot was perfect.
Right in the pocket.
I mean, right behind the shoulder. Literally, you could walk up to him. That's where you'd put it. But in all the commotion, I didn't hear the impact of that. And he definitely didn't react to it. I mean, it's unbelievable how those things can just soak up, 180 grain Accubon out of a 300. I mean, he's just literally showing nothing, right? Dustin also didn't get a read on that shot. So he just said, take your time, on this last shot, which in my mind kind of reaffirmed that he either one, thought I missed or didn't get a good read on it. So I came up to like high shoulder then for this my rifle holds 3 rounds, and so this is my last shot, come up to like high shoulder with the thinking that like, okay, I'm reading his body language, his right leg, he kind of held up. Did I maybe hit him like low, kind of in that like, joint a little bit, like right on the shoulder? I don't know. I'm like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold high shoulder. That way, if I hit right behind the reticle, it's going to just anchor him. And if I am shooting 3 inches low, whatever, like this is all rolling through my head at warp speed.
Right.
I'm going to drop it right into the pocket. So chamber that last round, come up a little bit. Dustin said, take your time. And you can see in the footage, like it's boom, boom on my first 2 shots. He says, take your time, and there's like a delay on him, like thinking about all this stuff that I just talked about. Boom, gun goes off, and the elk just dumps. I'm ready. Okay. Ready.
Reload, good shot. Take your time.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Oh my God.
That was the fastest succession of shots I've ever.
Oh
Oh my God, dude.
Oh my gosh. Way to go.
And then I freaked out. So, I mean,
I will say, you're saying, the first 2 shots and then delay.
it's still pretty dang quick.
You'd be hard pressed, everybody out there, to find somebody that can run a bolt gun in a hunting situation as fast as Mr. Erik Barber. We can harken back to the Sitka blacktail hunt that we did. Cue the footage of the Vortex hunts. And then maybe we'll be able to add this one as well. I don't know, but it's quite impressive. Like, I think it's autoloader speed out of a bolt gun.
Yeah, when the bull hits the ground, I think Dustin's first words are, "That was the fastest successor. Holy crap, I can't talk. Succession of shots I've ever heard."
Yeah.
So like same thing.
And you're like, and then I took my time.
Yeah. So it was just unreal, and like sitting there, I mean, bull's dead. Like it's over, and like just sitting there, like watching all those elk run up that river bottom, like bulls are still bugling like crazy. And I'm literally sitting there like, holy crap, I cannot like believe that just happened. It was unreal. I got like, super worked up out of the whole thing. Glassing this bull, like I'm like, are you like, he's right there, he's
down
dead.
there.
Like
He's
I
dead.
can see his beam, sticking out of the grass. Like it's over, done with, and I'm just like had total meltdown. It was so cool. So
well, and it's such, it's like you're excited, but then like particularly when you're into shot 2 and you're like, this thing isn't tipping over. And then it finally goes down on shot 3. There's a lot of relief there too.
For sure, totally.
That's an intense situation.
Yeah, yep, 100%. So I mean, that like we're literally just sitting up there, kind of soaking up the moment. Like everyone's freaking out. Dustin gives me a huge hug. Chantel runs over. I mean, like we're all just sitting up there, like the whole herd. And I mean, there's probably 50 head of elk at this point. There's probably 7 bulls in there running these cows up, bugling like crazy right after the shot. I mean, just it was so picture perfect. Like
it's a lot to soak in, and it's like in that moment you're like you can really soak it in, and just like just the gravity of the moment, and you just shot this magnificent bull, and the people that you're with, and how it went down. and there's still elk out there doing elk things. The next generation is going to continue to go on their journey, and you've got a big bull down and a ton of meat about to be in the freezer. A little bit of work to do beforehand, but I don't know, man. It's just
it was so cool. Like,
people say it doesn't get better, but it really doesn't get better than that.
Yeah, I mean, you're there for the journey, not the result. Like, the result is really cool, but like the journey is the bugling bulls, the years of applying all this stuff, right? So, like, in that moment for it to finally, like, I mean, it hit me like a ton of bricks, and I'm sitting there like, holy crap, this is unreal. So, we finally, I call my dad, tell him what all went down. Kind of taking our time, soaking up this whole thing. Like, I'm not just running down to this bull. I'm like trying to literally, like, every second, I'm just trying to, like, hang on to that. Eventually, we kind of walk up on him. That was unbelievable. Like, I honestly don't even have words for that. Like, walking up on something like that for the first time, like, one, just how big they are. Elk in general, not that bull specifically, but then that bull specifically, like, you run through a million scenarios in your head, when you've got from May to September to plan a hunt, right? Like, May is when I found out I drew the tag. September 14th is when I killed the bull. From those days in between, every single day, I have thought about a scenario, about something elk related every day, and then like you have this idea, like, man, I'd really be stoked with something like this. And then to shoot one like that, like, I mean, I could not tell you what he scores. Like, I don't know how to score things. But like, he's huge. He's got these fronts that just swoop up. He's got long thirds, crazy long, royals up on top. And like,
his force are like swords.
Yeah, they're unreal, So, we're just about to kind of break down the front and take off the head, the cape, all the things. And I mean, at this point, it's pitch black.
Right.
And, like, when you're down in the moment doing that stuff, like, you're bent over something, your lower back is getting tight, you got to take these breaks where you just, like, I had in high school, I worked on a masonry crew. Okay. And my boss was at the time probably in his late 50s, and he walked around like this, because his back was super effed up. So, like, I always feel like when you're gutting something, you finish up and then you stand like my masonry boss,
Yeah.
So I kind of did that, and I'm just like letting my back loosen up, and I'm like, I turned my headlamp off, and I'm just like looking at the stars. I'm like, what the heck is that? Like, it just, the sky looked different. Everyone kind of kills their lights. Northern Lights pop out. Like, just, it was unreal.
Of course.
Like, it just bizarre, So it took some awesome photos with the Northern Lights. Yeah, it was, I've seen the Northern Lights twice in my life, and that being one of them. Like, what are the odds of that, So it was really cool. Got to share that with Chantel. Obviously, hunting with Dustin was, like, next level fun. All the stuff that those guys are doing is, like, literally world class, So it was a 12 out of 10 experience. Like, words don't do it justice, Like, I've been hanging on to that moment, like, every day since then. And it's funny, you and I were even just talking before we started recording. I usually love bow hunting whitetails in September. I haven't gone bow hunting yet because I'm not ready to move on from that.
Right.
Like, it was just so freaking cool, So, yeah, it was something that, like, it lived up to the hype, it was unreal. So,
I mean, absolutely incredible. Like you said, lived up to the hype, all the things you could ask for. I mean, you crammed a lot of hunting and elk activity and different types of encounters into two. You had a full 2 days.
Totally. 100%.
But the other cool thing about that is, I mean, it's cool to have a hunt that goes to the bitter end. You work hard, and then, particularly, it works out at the very end, and you're like, oh, that's why you do all the things and the persistence. But it's also nice to have that little weight lifted off you and give yourself a little bit of cushion to enjoy some of the other things that the area offers.
It was so perfect. I mean, having Chantel with me there, like, she would have been totally A-okay. Like, she's she's not just someone that like tolerates hunting. Like she hunts herself. Like this is something that she enjoys too. So if this would have went the full length and on the last day at the last minute we kill one, she's just as happy, right? But you know, the way that it worked out, to your point, you know, we have now 3-4 more days. We're in the mountains. You know, we hiked up to, you know, above tree line a couple different days and caught, you know, cutthroats out of some like crazy high mountain lakes. You know, we saw moose. I mean, literally did some of the most incredible hiking we've ever done. So like to be able to combine those things in the span of like 7 days is, I mean, it literally was, you know, I was talking to my parents on the way home, like when we were driving back, and they asked how it was, and the only way I could describe it is like it was literally the most fun 7 days I've ever had. Like it was perfect.
Just hearing you tell the story, it couldn't have been better.
Yeah.
Like I can't think of a way that your trip gets better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely one to remember, one to.
For sure.
That's one for the books, for sure.
So it was super fun. I'm bummed it's over. It won't be another, I forget what I counted down, like how long I've wanted to elk hunt. It's been a long time. It won't be that long before I do this again. You know, it was...
September whitetails have a little competition now?
They got a lot of competition right now. So, yeah, it was a blast. I, like, you know, if someone's listening to this and they're like, oh, that sounds cool. It's like, it was cool. Like,
yeah, that is cool.
And if you, if like myself, I have said for forever, like next year, you know, like I'll do it eventually. That's the wrong answer. Like, do it now. Do it next year. Like, if you can fit something in this year, do it. Because, like, you only get so many opening days and so many times to, like, do this stuff. So, like, I wish I would have done this 10 years ago, you know? I mean, and look at the difference of that, right? Like, in 10 years, how many elk hunts can you go on, you know? So, like, I finally started thinking about this. It started occupying, like, space in my brain about 10 years ago. And it took me that long to finally do it. And while it was like totally worth it the way that it worked out, like I wish I would have started earlier. So like if someone is in my shoes, like, you know, I've had a couple people reach out on Instagram and said like, oh yeah, like I can totally relate to that because I shared some of this stuff, like that same thought process. And a couple people like hit me up on that. Like if people can relate to that, like act on it. Don't just sit there because man, it was incredible.
Well, elk hunting is physical.
Yep.
It's hard. It's challenging. You're gonna elk hunt. Your ability to elk hunt is different when you're 20 than when you're 60.
Totally.
Right. So if you have the opportunity or can make the opportunity, sacrifice to somehow do it because it's something that you want to do.
Yep.
The earlier, the better. I mean, I feel it. I mean, last week I was like, these mountains are...
Yeah, they're getting steeper.
They're getting steeper. Yeah, they must have, jutted out of the earth a little bit more or something.
Ryan's going to kill us because we're way over time. But the last story I'll throw in here on that point is it was the day before we left. I told you this story, my UPS encounter.
Oh, wait, what? Yeah, hold on. Yeah, go. Yeah.
This is kind of a bizarre story. So I rented camera gear from Lens Rentals.
Right.
And you got to sign for that.
Oh,
like
yeah.
when it comes to your house. So the day before I left, I'm working at home because I got to sign for this package. Package finally comes, and I've got like coolers and like archery targets like all stacked up because literally we're leaving the next morning, you know. So my truck's all like rigged up. I've got coolers, I've got archery targets, I've got packs, all this stuff, right? UPS driver must have been a hunter because he pulls up and he's like, "Oh, you getting ready to go bow hunting this weekend?" Because it just happened to coincide with Wisconsin's opening day archery season.
Yeah.
So I'm like, man, how does he know I'm going elk hunting? But then thinking about it, he assumed I was going archery deer hunting. And so that dawned on me in the moment. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not chasing deer. I'm going elk hunting this weekend. And it like just kind of stopped the guy in his tracks. Like this guy was probably mid-50s, you know. And I showed him a trail cam photo or a photo of an elk, you know, that Dustin had snagged or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, this is one of the bulls that's out in the area we'll be in, blah, blah, blah. And the guy was literally like, that photo just stopped him in his tracks. And he's like, man, he's like, you are so lucky. He's like, I'm whatever age he is. He's like, I remember when I was 18, me and my high school buddy said we were going to do it. He's like, I'm 52, 53, whatever it is now. And he's like, and I've never done it. And you know what I mean?
Chills again in a different way,
yeah.
you know?
But anyways, it was kind of a crazy little and like
kind of like a reality check, makes you more grateful for like what you're about to go do.
Total random encounter. You know what I mean? Like when I came into work, I'm like, yeah, I had a wild encounter with the UPS driver. Everyone's like, what are you talking about? And I told that story, and like that story kind of hung out in the back of my head like all week, you know, is like, that's how much this stuff actually means to people. So yeah, if you are someone that's kind of sitting on the sidelines thinking about this, like, just do it. You owe it to yourself to do it.
Life's short, man. Figure it out later. If that's something you're interested in doing. And I mean, honestly, hopefully you order something else from UPS and you can, share your story with this guy and get him even a little bit more, maybe get him pumped up enough that he goes over the edge, or, maybe he's a podcast listener. We don't know.
Totally.
Eric, but,
I hope so.
Man, yeah, but you hear that and you're like, don't, if it's something you want to do, don't let that be you. Don't let it slip away.
Yep. No doubt.
There's time there's a lot of time to do the day to day.
Yep, for sure. They make more of that. They don't make more Septembers.
No, this is true. This is true. So, well, Eric, thank you so much for sharing your hunt with me. It was super cool. It's a great story. Like I said, it could not have worked out better, and I'm so pumped for you. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. Boy, fall is in full swing. Yep. Hopefully you're getting out there. Share your stories with us. Let us know what you've been up to. Until next time, happy hunting, shooting. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye.